would now like to invite Mr. Sheikh Fazle Shams Porosh. He is going to give us our keynote speech, but before that, I would like to introduce him to you properly. He is the son of Sheikh Fazlul Haq Moni, who was one of the victims of the 15th August tragedy, as well as his mother Arju Moni, who was also a victim of that night. So Sheikh Fazle Shams Porosh is now currently heading the youth wing of our party, which is the Bangladesh Awami Jubo League. It is a wing of the party which was founded actually by his father, Sheikh Fazlul Haq Moni. So it gives us great pleasure that he has given us the time and joined us today to share his experiences. Without further ado, Mr. Sheikh Fazle Shams Porosh.
Good evening, everyone. I was too young to understand politics at that time. Most of the complicated matters in the world was unknown to me at that time. My father, Sheikh Moni, and my mother, Arju Moni. And I was the eldest son. I was born in 1970, just before the Liberation War. During the Liberation War, my younger brother, Sheikh Taposh, was born. I am most proud to say that my father is a freedom fighter. More importantly, he was one of the organizers of Liberation War. Baba trained many freedom fighters during the Liberation War. Baba was nephew of father of the nation, Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. And he was also a political disciple of our father of the nation, Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. My mother was also a niece of Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujib. She was involved in student politics. In 1968, she was elected General Secretary from Borishal Mohila College Student Union. My maternal grandfather was also veteran politician. He was also a very prominent political leader in Borishal, Mr. Abdul Rab Sainiabad. So I was born in a well-reputed, very traditional political family. So when in 1971, the country was formed and liberated, and when the father of the nation came to Bangladesh in 1972, we were sort of relieved in a sense that our lifelong struggle for anticipation and lifelong struggle and anxiety regarding the safety of father of the nation, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujib, was over. That's at least what we thought. So when Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujib came back and took over the responsibility of the country, at that setting, my childhood was developing. I was growing during that time. My father was at the same time a journalist and a politician, youth politician. My mother was a housewife, and at the same time, she was also a student of Dhaka University in political science. So I was getting raised in a very warm and loving family environment. Especially, I must recall Sheikh Fazilatan Nisa Mujib. My Sheikh Fazilatan Mujib was who I used to call Apon Dadi. I was very fond of her. She used to take care of all my demands. The house in road number 32, Dhanmondi, was my favorite place to visit. I was also fond of our current Prime Minister, Sheikh Hasina. She used to be very loving and compassionate towards all the kids, as well as to me. She used to love the children, spend time with them, and we children were very fond of her. Me and my brother were very fond of our mother, Arjuna. We were very clinging to her. We hardly let her go to anywhere, even to the bathroom. She used to shower us, put us on the dressing table, and used to comb our hair. Took us to school and feed us and kept and put us to sleep with lullaby song. Father was most fathers were little less available. He used to run a newspaper, actually a number of newspapers at the time, and very busy with the organization. But however much we used to get our father, I recall that I was very clinging to him. We used to make him a horse to play with. I used to comb his hair, and whenever we used to get him, we were extremely clinging toward him. Once, Baba went to Khulna for organizational work. I made a demand that I must find my father. I need my father right away. So I started make a fuss about it, and was demanding that I need Baba. So Ma was Ma was puzzled by my demands and put me on phone with my dad. And I asked him that you must be here right now. I need you. Baba, I need you right now. So Baba said that you have to be a little patient. I will come tomorrow morning. So the entire time went with anticipation that Baba will be here next morning. Next morning, so I couldn't sleep the entire night. Next morning, we went to school, and I was still anticipating, and I was feeling happy that Baba will be back today. When I came back home, I looked for Baba everywhere, but Baba was nowhere. Then I found her in the bed. He is tugging in under a katha. So when we found our dad, that was the most happy time I recall of my childhood. So now I'm going to narrate a part on that very difficult day of our nation. So it was very early morning before the dark dusk, that we woke up with the noise and the sound of arms, bullets, and firing shots. So we were just two brothers. When I woke up, I found just two brothers in the bed. Baba, Ma were not around. So, but there were huge noise and of gunshots, and noise coming from the stair room. So we didn't know what to do. So we two brothers held each other and went to the stair room. So that's where we found my father and mother lying on the ground, bleeding to death. And my grandma, I recall the scene. My grandma was acting really not in good shape. She was acting really crazy, and completely a chaotic situation. So at that point, and my uncle and aunt, Selinkaka and Chachi, they were trying to save my parents. And my parents, my father was probably completely dead at that time. He was not moving or making any sound. But my mother was speaking. She was trying to she was fighting hard with life and asking for water and communicating a little bit. She told my chachi and chacha that what will happen to my porosh taposh. So and that's what I recall her saying, and she also said that please take care of my kids. So that's my that's my recollection, and that's my recollection from that, and actually last recollection from that about my father and mother at that time. So that was probably her last remark or comment or saying. What happened afterward is sort of vague to me, but I recall the sound of bullets, the gunshots, and everything. And some people were coming towards us, towards our building or our house. And so my chachi, my aunt, took me to the dressing room, had us lay down on the floor so the bullets don't hit us. We didn't get to see our parents after that incident. So we heard that my Salim uncle took my mother in one car to the hospital, and my father was taken by my younger uncle Maruf Kaka to the hospital. When everything was when the gunshots appeased and everything was calmed down a little bit, we got out of that house with just whatever we are wearing, and took shelter to a building next, which was an official building of some embassy. So we took embassy building or diplomat's house or something like that. We took refuge there, and we were able to watch that army cars are coming to the building, and they are vandalizing and and robbery and taking stuff out of the house and stuff like that. So that's where our life of refugee begins. So we were taking shelter in one house for some time, then another house another day. So that's how we lived for many months. I would say at least 5 to 6 months. And we were taking shelter in different, so wherever we used to go, they would, the killers or the army personnels would, the so-called army personnels, I would say, would come to find us. And many households, many families were harassed because of that, during that situation, because of us, because we were given shelter by them. There are many examples and incidents. I wouldn't go so much details, but I would just say that we were taking shelters to relatives' houses, friends, and etc. And everywhere we went, and that households were harassed or or threatened some way or another. During that time, we did not get chance to mourn or express our sorrow, because life-threatening threats of life and life security was such a dire issue at the time. And so my uncles, they couldn't stay in the country. They had to leave the country because of their life security. So that went on, that type of situation went on, and we have been taking shelters at different places. So at one point, where my major pupu, she rented an apartment for us, so that our life of our life of drifting around comes to an end. But we couldn't stay there too, because life security was so intense. Within a couple of months, we decided that now we are going to go to our chacha chachi. Let me clarify, by we, I mean that we two brothers and my aunt who was like teenager, for 15 years old, my young Choto Pupu, and my grandma, who was 60 up. So she's an elderly person, and or close to 70 actually she was. So she was actually elder than Bangabandhu Dada Sheikh Mujib. So she was, I think, close to 60 years old or close by. Anyway, so those are so two female and we two kids. That's the situation I'm talking about when I'm saying that we were drifting from one place to another. So rest of the guys or male in the family have fled the country because of life security was so intense. So we couldn't live in that Arambak house for too long. I know time is a factor, something. Then we
ভাই আপনি
made,
বলেন, সময় শুন, আপনি বলতে থাকেন।
okay. Then we made an attempt to we made our first attempt to cross the border to leave the country, but we were not successful. We were not successful in the first attempt, but I have to tell you, if all the attempts of crossing the border was extremely hard, painful, and tiring, exhausting, and difficult and life-threatening. So the first attempt was not successful. We tried to cross the border from Agartala. And that attempt was not successful because some culprit, the place where we were staying overnight, that people wanted to give us away to the military or the administration at the time. My grandma overheard their conversation and she got scared and fled with us that place, leaving all our belongings over there. So that's how we escaped and left that place. And then in the second attempt, we made from Meherpur. And in that attempt, I also recall it was as I said, it was extremely difficult to cross the border. As you understand, we were not crossing the border in a regular way. We were hiding and escaping our own country. So that's how it went. We finally in the second experience. So we were able to cross the border, but we were staying. I recall an incident that we were staying in a place. It was kind of a place where there's water everywhere, sort of an island. You could say it's sort of an island, and it was very extremely dark night. It was very remote place, and it was scary environment. And so when we were trying to, so when we got a signal, and we had a guide, Mr. Nojrul. He was our, a freedom fighter and our guide and helper, our well acquainted. So when he gave us a signal that okay, now you can cross the border, you can run, and we started running, crossing. We were running, and there were water up to our knees, and like sort of, or like more than that. So we crossed that watery path, and then we kept running with taposh. Sometime on my dadi's lap, or sometimes my Rekha Fufu was holding taposh and running. So that's how we crossed the border. It was extremely hard. Our main inspiration was that if we cross the border, we'll get to see our parents, because we were told that our parents were on the other side, were outside the country. And if we can reach our Selim Kaka and Maruf Kaka, our two uncles, they will take us to our parents. We were never told that our parents are actually dead. So we were in denial, we were in oblivion that we lost the most precious persons in our life. So finally we crossed the border, and and it was a long process. They checked they checked for approval from the main office and stuff like that. And then when My uncles came. It was a very painful scenario. They cried like babies holding us. We didn't know that why are they crying so hard. We thought they were crying just to see. But there was deep inside, reasons or latent reasons for crying that we couldn't realize. And we were hoping that, okay, we reached the border, we will be taken to our parents. So we came to, but they took us to a home. It's called the Cinderella home, the Cinderella place. The Cinderella place, the house was called Cinderella because there is a department store outside, which is called Cinderella department store. So at that time, we were taken to that house and we were looking for our parents, but there was no, but we couldn't find them. We find many other relatives, and we found our cousins and relatives. But where is mom and dad? They were nowhere to be found. But we kids, we sort of, I guess we got used to that environment real quick and started playing with our cousins as normally most kids do. Then we were so we lived in that house for few months. And then because there were too many people coming back from Bangladesh to take shelter over there, so we changed our house, went to another place, then another house. That's how the first, and during that exile time, my aunt was always careful that we don't get sad or we don't get upset. So she used to take care of us all the time, try to divert our attention so that we don't ask for our mom and dad. So she used to like sort of distract us with taking us to outside to go to maybe a movie or take us to a circus. And so that's how she concentrated on us. So that's how that period went, and gradually we realized that this whole idea about finding mom and dad, and the whole idea that mom and dad are outside our mom and dad are, sometimes we were told that mom and dad are actually in London, they're having treatment and they will be back or we will be going there. So as I am growing, so we spent about 3 years in Calcutta over there. So during our exile time, close to 3 years. So 3 years is, a child grows probably quite fast in 3 years. So in 3 years, so we started to realize, okay, what's happening? Whenever we talk about mom and dad, everybody gets upset and they don't say anything. They say like, oh, they're upset, they're having treatment. So what exactly going on? Gradually, so I got fed up with asking about mom and dad, and I started becoming a little maybe cranky. And so I used to, and Tapas was too young to say anything or claim anything. He was kind of a passive type. So I realized like, okay, I stopped asking about mom and dad at one point. You know what? That's it. So I started giving up on that hope, I think. Then but my final understanding or realization came when we were coming back in 1979. So when we were coming back in 1979, that's when I realized that, the whole idea that mom and dad is there and we will be going to our mom and dad or mom and dad will be coming back is actually a story. Is not fact at all. It's actually a fiction. So that's when I realized, like, okay, that's when I really became hopeless. And then we came back again, crossing the border, coming back, just four of us, again, the four of us, two female and two children. So four of us coming back. And when we, again, border crossing, again, the whole 9 years. And when we at last came back to the country, we found that we couldn't rent any place. People don't give us any house for rent. We hardly have any money. So we stayed with our aunt. my eldest aunt, Maya Pupu, to her place for 6 months. And then um, my uncles, my both chachas were also taking preparation to coming back to the country. They were sort of judging the security state over here. So when we came back, and my relatives, my dadi and pupu, they were extremely protective and cautious about our security. We were not even allowed to step outside the gate. So, children at that stage, they want to play around, but we were not allowed to play that much. Actually, not at all. So that was one thing I noticed. And also then finally we took an apartment, or took an apartment to live in Lalmatia, and Chachi was trying to get her into school. But we realized that not all school is safe for us, because you may find the killers, or the killers, or the uh, the same community, or their killer's community, or their accomplice, their children in that school. So that kind of research had to be done. Okay, who else read in that school? Is that school secured for Porosh and Taposh? So that was the whole kind of a struggle or dilemma to even select a school. Um, but so at first for example, at first we were admitted to the same school where we studied before my parents were killed. So, but it was Udayan school. Then, after studying there for close to a year, my chachi and pupu realized that that's not school is not safe for us, because the principal is having the principal had a very good relationship with Ziaur Rahman Sharkar at that time. So that was not a good decision. We got away from that school. Got out from that school. Then we were admitted to another school where Awami League leader Rajak Kakka's wife was teaching. So we felt secured in that school. Okay, Rajak Bhai. So chachis were thinking that, okay, Rajak Bhai wife okhane pora, bhabhi okhane pora. So that's why they became so okay. So that school may be a little secured, because Rajak Kakka's wife Chachi used to teach there. So we got finally admitted to that school, uh, and that's how our study begins after a disruption of almost 3 years. Mind you, we were in. I just recall that we were admitted to in Don Bosco School in Calcutta just for a few months, just before we were coming back. So yeah, so a disruption took place in our studies as well, in terms of schooling, and then we realized until Sheikh Sheikh Hasina, the Prime Minister of Bangladesh, came back to Bangladesh in 1981. That was another day in our family's life that we will never forget. That was most sorrowful day, I would say, in our entire family. It was raining the entire day. It was raining cats and dog, very very muddy, and and the whole nature was sort of pouring down. So anyway, so it was hard, because all the family, it was very real, or like anticipating, realizing how difficult it would be for her to come back to this country where he left so many loved ones, and will come back and will find none. So that was very hard for us to take, and all the family members were crying, and she was crying also. She was fainting, fainting. I mean, several times. She was, and everybody. It was really very hard time at that to even see, and as you can understand. So she came back, and then she started, and we lived in the same house for a little bit, uh, and then she started, and that's when I saw her, that she started to organize the political party, and at that time, I I noticed that how hard she started working from dawn to dusk. She worked very hard to organize the party at the time. She will be away for sometimes for a couple of days, sometimes for hours from like morning to um, and that's when we realized that she's trying to get justice for her parents, for our parents murder in 1975. And that was her main objective of working so hard from morning to dusk and late at night. So that's how I observed her struggle. And actually, I never realized at one point. I was very pessimist, I think, because I never realized it would be even possible to get the justice, because we saw that all the killers families, they were rewarded. Their children are showing off, and showing off brands and various brands, sneakers and shoes and watch and all that. They were like really, they were the dominant force in the country at the time, and very, very arrogant also. So in the schools we went, in our children community, we felt like it was very difficult. I personally did not expect that it will ever be possible, because we also heard that there is an indemnity law of some kind which barred the country from taking any action in regards to that occurrence of 1975, that killing of 1975. So I lost hope, but I noticed that our prime minister, our leader, Manoniya Pradhan Mantri, Prime Minister, Honorable Prime Minister, she didn't give hope. She tried hard from I mean, relentless um, struggle and relentless attempts to organize her party. And then we went from door to door the seeking justice, which we didn't get. We had to wait long 21 years to get the justice after all. And after, when Awami League came to power, when our Prime Minister, Honorable Prime Minister, came to power in 1996, that's the only time, that's the first time we saw lights that, okay, now this may be possible. It may be possible that we may get justice. Before that, it was not possible. Even in my imagination, and from a personal note, that this would be possible. So that's the scenario. That's all I have to say. I think I'm going to stop here. But I think I took a lot of time. I apologize, but that's where I end, I think.